Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle, and you are listening to or watching Radio Maine. Today I have with me in the studio Illustrator Bruce Hutchinson. Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, Bruce, you reached out because you're doing a very special project. Tell me about that.
A local author, Andrew Fersch, reached out to me almost 2 years ago now to collaborate with him and illustrate his children's book. The minute I read the text, I was hooked, brought a tear to my eye, and I've been plugging away at it it took me a good year and a half to finish all the artwork. Now it's ready to go to the press, and we're super excited about it.
And what is the subject of your very special book?
Well, the story follows a young girl. Her name is Aspen. She is actually based on Andrew's daughter. She goes to Higgins Beach often. One day she notices all these beautiful little birds late in the spring, and she starts to take notes about the plovers. She has a sketchbook with her, so she brings her sketchbook along, does some drawings, and brings her notes and drawings into her teacher. And her teacher informs her that they are, in fact, piping plovers, and they are on the endangered list. So Aspen gets super excited, as does all her classmates, and they sort of all band together, go to Higgins Beach often, and try to tell people to stay away from the nesting area. At some point in the summer, because she can't stay there 24/7, she actually even opens up a little lemonade stand with dog treats and pamphlets about the plovers. That's basically it. The story comes full circle as the book winds down. One of the pages depicts her as a teenager returning to the beach, and the plovers are flourishing. Not to give too much away, but the last page shows her as an adult woman with her own child, which that's the one that really got me. So it's a wonderful story.
So what was it about the piping plovers that appealed to you?
Well, having my wife and I and children and my sister's family and her children, we rented a home right at the setting. It's the last house on Higgins Beach before you hit the Spurwink River. And we did that for like 15 years in a row. And we used to see like the plovers all the time. And, truth be told, we knew that people didn't know it was a nesting area. So you'd get the occasional loose dog running over there and frisbees and volleyballs flying through the dune grass. And when Andrew approached me with this story, I'm like, oh my goodness, I know that area so well. How can I say no? Apparently, plover habitat in Maine is down like by 2/3. So the birds really need help.
And this is because we've been building seawalls and jetties, and there's been more kind of human impact on their nesting sites?
That's partially it. Partially climate change, sea level rise, and, people sort of not being aware. Thankfully, the Audubon Society, puts signs up now, and people are becoming more aware that it's really fragile, and they are such fragile little birds. So, one dog off leash can really cause some havoc. Not that I'm not a dog lover, I am.
And they are. They're tiny little birds.
They're very tiny. My wife and I used to joke that the fledgling chicks look like a fluffy marshmallow on 2 toothpicks. They're just so cute.
You didn't grow up near the ocean. You've lived there as an adult, but you actually grew up more inland.
That's correct, yeah. But almost every Sunday in the summertime, my parents would pack us all into the Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser and drive to Reid State Park almost every Sunday. So love the ocean. If you had told me back then that I'd be living 100 yards from the water in Cape Elizabeth, I would have said, no way, can't happen. And my wife is totally drawn to the ocean as well. I mean, we live in such a beautiful state. We're so lucky.
So your parents putting you all in the car, because there were quite a few of you, right?
7 of us.
7 of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you lived in Waterville.
Mm-hmm.
So packing you all up to go to Reid State Park, that was a commitment.
Yeah, it was a huge commitment. And on Sundays, of course, all being good Catholics, we actually went to church at 5:45 a.m. I mean, the thought of it. I have 3 children, and the thought that we'd be getting them up to attend Mass at 5:45 and then go to the beach, not going to happen.
I don't even think they have Mass at 5:45 a.m. anymore.
I've never heard of it. We had the third pew from the front of the church every Sunday.
And your parents went with all 9 of you?
All 9 of us.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you end up moving from Waterville to Cape Elizabeth.
I lived in Waterville until 1976, went to college in Providence at RISD, got married 2 weeks after graduation, and my wife and I were like, we're moving back to Maine. We're going to live in Portland. So we lived in North Deering for 25 years. After, well, we made a couple stops before North Deering, but raised our children there. And when it came down to downsize, we found this great little house that needed a ton of work. And it's been 10 years, and we pretty much have it the way we want it now. And we're loving it.
Is your wife also from Maine?
She's a Vermonter.
So, and she's also from a large family, you had mentioned to me.
That's correct. Yeah, she's from a family of 8. We're both number 6 in line. Kind of a cool coincidence.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, I'm the oldest of 10, so I know the one that is 6th in line has had a very different experience in our family than I did.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yes, it's almost like being part of different families. If you're the oldest, you're kind of the chunk of the older family kids, and then if you're towards the end, you're...
So true. Yeah, I hear you.
And also growing up in a Catholic family. Although by the time I went through, they did not have 5:45 a.m. masses. And nor, I agree with you, would my parents have probably been able to prompt us to get out of bed for this. But yeah. So I'm interested to know, as far as your illustration career, why you made the choice to go into that field.
Well, I majored in illustration at RISD, and it was always like, most artistic, my senior year of high school, and I just wasn't very good at anything else. So I only applied to one school, which I thought was, back then, a good choice. RISD has a great reputation, and I got in, and when I got out, I did get a job at an advertising agency for about a year and a half, made lots of contacts, with graphic designers and art directors, creative directors. So that was like, I realized didn't quite fit in with that corporate environment, and I just made the jump to, I had done some illustrations for the advertising agency I worked at, and then I saw like a clear path, like I could start doing this on my own, and I really never looked back. Yeah, so there was an old joke, if you were an artist, graphic designer in the early 80s and you were looking for work, we used to tell each other, just walk up and down Exchange Street a couple times and you're bound to meet a frantic art director who needed, an overnight piece of artwork. And that was a long time ago. Times have changed, but somewhere along the line, maybe after just focusing on the local market and staying quite busy, one of my art director friends mentioned that I should look into getting an artist representative. I had never heard of it. So I reached out to try and find a representative, sent samples of my work out. I got a very positive response, and soon enough, I landed my first representative, who was based out of Boston. And she started getting me projects, on a regional, national scale. And, it was surreal how quickly it happened. And I was with her for maybe 20 years. She kind of got out of the business. I quickly contacted another rep who was great out of Colorado. And she got out of it too after about 10 years, but she was wonderful. And now I'm represented by a fellow named Richard Solomon, who's been an artist representative for as long as I've been an artist, and he's based out of Manhattan. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. Lots of interesting clients and really fun projects. I have to say, though, working on this children's book with Andrew was the most rewarding project I've ever been part of. He was just so great to work with. I mean, it was a true collaboration. If I got stuck on an image, he always had a really good suggestion. And we believe so strongly in the book, that's why we decided to kickstart it, so we could keep sort of creative control of the whole process. And we're really excited that it's really done well. And we hope that the book's going to be printed and ready to go, I think in August or September Unfortunately, we were hoping that it would happen a little bit quicker, so we were hoping that it would be late spring because the plovers are already, they're back north. And we were out at Higgins Beach just a couple weeks ago, and there were some nesting pairs. So, but it's all good. There'll be another spring around the corner.
It seems to me that we've been paying attention to the plovers for quite a while now. When I've walked on beaches, and this has been years and years, there have been roped off areas and signs and letting people know that these are protected nesting areas. Do you know whether that has made a difference?
I do. I absolutely do. I can't give you any statistics. Andrew would be the one to have like the scientific background to give you some facts and figures, but it really seems like it's having an impact.
As you're doing your illustrations, I know you've worked for Shipyard, Basket Island Oyster, Bon Appetit, LL Bean, Texas Monthly. Have you ever done children's books before?
That was another interesting thing. I'd been approached before several times, but the timing never, scheduling as a freelance artist is really difficult, and it still is. So I always had to turn them down. Andrew's project came along at not just the perfect time, but it was the text that really made me think I have to get involved with this. It's such a great opportunity to work on something that we're pretty passionate about, and to have the setting, practically in our backyard. It was great. I was really super excited about it, and it's a big project, 28 full-page illustrations plus the front cover and the back cover. And, even after doing this for 42 years, it can get a little bit overwhelming to think how much we have to do. It was, I think, Andrew's suggestion to just take it one page at a time. So I would work on actually 3 pages at a time, do rough pencil sketches, run them by Andrew, and 99% of the time it was like, this is going to be great. I love it. So then I finish the 3 pages and then start on the next 3, and so on and so forth, saving the front cover and the back cover for last because I really wanted to have that perfect image for the front cover that would kind of hook people, sort of get to the crux of the whole story, which to me was that people, if they're careful, we can live harmoniously with the plovers, and it's not like we totally have to not go to the beach anymore. We can still do it. We just have to know where they're at and just be a little bit more careful.
How did Andrew find you?
He found me through, I think it's a website for RISD alumni that I wasn't even aware that I was on. I'm lucky enough to have a wonderful daughter-in-law who does a lot of social media stuff for me, and I'm not really aware, but God bless her. I think she got my work on that site, and Andrew found out that I was from Maine, and he was living in South Portland at the time, and he reached out to me, and this was right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was difficult at first to, we would meet outside all masked up and talk about, some of the images we wanted to include. And, it's interesting thinking back. It seems like a long time ago. It seems like yesterday.
Yeah, I think the COVID pandemic definitely kind of caused a little bit of a time shift for many of us.
For me, it was, I remember, a lot of friends and family were like, oh, I don't like this working at home stuff. And I love working at home. And it was like, what's the problem? I've been doing it for 42 years. Working at home is wonderful.
Yeah, that's great perspective. I mean, this is your work. So for you, it probably just meant that the people that you interacted with who didn't work from home were needing to shift their way of doing things, but not necessarily the way you did it.
Yeah, I totally got that too. And how many times did we all say, if you have grown children, thank goodness, our children were grown up when this thing hit, because I can't imagine the challenges we had. We have a grandson, and we had him on Mondays for virtual classroom work, and it was like my heart went out to not just the kids and having to adjust to the new way of going to school, but the teachers, how they had to switch everything around. So
yeah, kind of glad we're getting out of that phase.
You and me.
Yes. So one thing I've been interested in when it comes to illustration is that it seems like it's been impacted by the digital world and the ability to do things differently than just simply with pen and ink and pencil drawings. And so how has that been the case in your life?
Stylistically, the digital age hasn't changed anything that I do really differently. I occasionally, someone will reach out to me who sees my website or my representative's website and get back to me and ask me what app I use, which always cracks me up, and I usually reply like I use the old-fashioned start with paper and pencil and then move on to traditional tools. One really nice thing, though, about what's happened with the digital age and art is that I can scan my work at home and just send the file out and hold on to my originals, because I'm early on in my career working for a big advertising agency, and you'd have to send the physical artwork out, and maybe 50% of the time they'd send it back. And if you tried to reach out to them, they'd be like, yeah, if we can find it, we'll get it back to you. But oftentimes, who knows what happened to it. So it's great. I've got 6 blueprint files just filled with artwork.
Bruce, when you were growing up, did your family encourage you to be an artist, or was there someone at school that encouraged you to be an artist or be an illustrator?
My mom dabbled in oil paints, and I have these really early memories of looking over her shoulder and just being like incredibly fascinated. Like, she made it look super easy. I mean, I guess I had an aptitude for it early on. Like, I remember some of my teachers early on saying, oh, he has good eye-hand coordination. He doesn't want to use the big fat crayons, and really strange things that stuck with me. And looking back, I still have like some of my early like middle school, high school art, and it's like, I look at it and I'm like, who told me I was talented? It was, very rudimentary, but I stuck with it. I had a really talented art teacher in high school, and she was, lost touch with her, but she was a huge inspiration. Super talented, very approachable. I do remember when I told her it was RISD or nothing, she was like, you better have a backup plan. And my backup plan was to join the Marine Corps, like my dad. How about that? So luckily I got in, and it was interesting being, voted most artistic in my senior class. When I got to RISD, it was a whole new world. I remember first day of figure drawing class, I was absolutely floored. It's like I'm not a big fish in a small pond anymore. However the saying goes, I was like absolutely floored at the talent. And, like everyone else, you see that and you just have to pick up your game. And I had one of my drawing teachers became an incredibly successful children's book illustrator. Chris Van Allsburg? Yeah. And he was, when I had him, he was working on his first book, and he would bring in, page by page, these unbelievably beautiful drawings. And I think that's why my whole career I was like, I really wish I could get into the children's book market. And I think that was seeing his work and what he subsequently did with like Jumanji and the Polar Express and all that. He was such a soft-spoken, wonderfully talented instructor, very dry sense of humor. He was huge. And he did put one book out that was a similar style to the way I work now, pen and ink. And he taught us all that sort of time-tested engraving style. And it was interesting. When I got out of RISD, I had a portfolio filled with watercolors and pencil drawings, and I had 1 or 2 pen and ink drawings. And, back in those days, you would just go around to different advertising agencies with your portfolio and show your work. And everyone, liked my work and was very positive about it. But those 2 black and white pen and ink drawings, everyone would be like, wow, I haven't seen anything like that. These would reproduce really well in the newspaper. And I didn't choose that as a career path, black and white line and watercolor combined, but it chose me and turned out to be a pretty good fit.
Bruce, I really look forward to seeing your book when it comes out, hopefully in August.
Thank you. We'll see that you get a copy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That would be great. And where will people be able to get a copy of this book?
Well, we're scouting locations around Scarborough, around Cape Elizabeth, South Portland area. Depending on how many we print, we'll expand out from there. But if you go to Higgins Beach in the summertime and stop maybe at IGA or the Higgins Beach Market or maybe the Black Point Inn or Inn by the Sea, we're looking into all these different places. So.
And will there be information on your website?
Absolutely, yes.
What is your website?
BruceHutchinson.com.
Very good. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm Dr. Lisa Belisle, and you have been listening to or watching Radio Maine. Today I've been speaking with illustrator Bruce Hutchinson, and I'm looking forward to seeing his finished book that will be featuring one of our most important, protected, endangered species here in the state of Maine, the piping plover. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.